All right. Welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. Frankie, welcome to the Week 13 Bye-pocalypse starts and sits. How you feeling, brother?
Feeling good, John. Feeling good. Feeling a little scary. It's a little bit nuts with these bye-pocalypses coming up, but I think for you listening and watching this, we got your back. I think you're going to enjoy what we have coming.
I think we've got your back, yeah. Don't forget you can follow us on social media, on Instagram at Frankly Fantasy Football. And I know you all listen on everywhere podcasts are found, but please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're growing this channel, and it really helps us out if you subscribe. Smashing the notification bell. It'll tell you every week when our episodes come out. All right, today, Frankie, we got some good stuff for everybody today. We got our starts and sits. If we've got a little time, we may look at some streaming options for Week 13 as well. But we're going to kick things off with a little bit of news first.
The season that your listeners don't expect.
News and notes. All right, we got a lot of stuff to talk about here. I'm going to blast through a lot of this stuff. Interesting news came out this morning, actually. Cardinals release tight end Zach Ertz. Now, he's got to clear waivers. He wants to play for a contender. And, of course, all the rumor mills are going through right now. Frankie, what are you hearing about Zach Ertz? What are some of his ideal landing spots, I suppose?
John, there's two from what we're hearing right now. And right now it's looking as if it's Baltimore Ravens. Mark Andrews going down, Mandrews. They have Isaiah Likely, the young cat, second year. But they want to shore that up quite a bit more. So, John, Baltimore Ravens could be a landing spot, or his old stomping grounds at that of the Philadelphia Eagles with the issues that they've had with Dallas Goedert from an injury perspective. This makes a lot of sense. And so for me, man, the Philadelphia Eagles are the only one-loss team in the entirety of the NFL. They're absolutely a contender. Jalen Hurts is playing so elite right now. It's beautiful to see. So if he's wanting to go to a contender, why not look at the top two, in my opinion, teams right now in the NFL, being that of the number one in the AFC, Baltimore Ravens, and that of the number one in the NFC, Philadelphia Eagles.
How did that make you feel, saying that the Ravens are the number one team in the AFC?
I'm going to punch my face after this just a tad. Just a tad. Okay. I'm going to smack it around, but it hurts. It hurts.
It does. And it's not even a hurt so good situation. It just hurts.
Just hurts.
Yeah. All right. So stay tuned for Zach Ertz. I did pick him up last week, threw him on my IR because I knew he'd be coming back soon. Might be a good idea if you've got him sitting out there, guys. Throw him on your IR still at the moment. Doesn't take up a bench spot, so it could be interesting. He's assuming he's healthy after his injury. He could have some value for a team here, so really interesting stuff there. Another rumor in the NFL, Frankie, the Bears apparently have had some conversations with Jim Harbaugh about coaching the team next year. Yeah, that's not really fantasy relevant, but I thought it was cool news and just wanted to throw that out there. But that could be interesting, man. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Can't do worse than what they've been doing, John.
No, you're absolutely right. Aaron Rodgers, so just, he wants me to have him in the news every week, so I'm going to put him in the news every week. Apparently, he's going to practice. We'll see. Listen, I think it's silly. I think he's just he's doing this for him. He's not doing it for the team. But I don't anticipate Aaron Rodgers playing this year. Why would you do that? Trey McBride, tight end for the Arizona Cardinals, the sole tight end now that Zach Ertz got released. He's questionable this week with a groin, so maybe they could have waited one more week to release Zach Ertz. Didn't practice on Thursday. Keep an eye on him. If he does get out on the field on Friday for practice, then he may be good to go. But keep an eye on him. He's been very, very good at the tight end in a terrible tight end landscape right now. Travis Etienne, running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars, day-to-day with a chest injury. He plays on Monday Night Football, so they are optimistic that he will go. But there's that dangerous, having your stud running back, day-to-day, questionable, playing on Monday Night Football. Make sure you've got backup plans. Look at Tank Bigsby. Look at D'Ernest Johnson. If you don't have him, one of those two guys backing up Travis Etienne, please do that because he is definitely questionable. The New England Patriots preparing for Bailey Zappi to start. Cool.
Sweet. Cool. Good for you guys. Welcome to hell. like all the rest of us. Okay, we
I'm
don't have Tom Brady.
Definitely not starting the receivers that I definitely wasn't going to start for the team anyway. So thanks for the heads up, guys. Ramondre Stevenson, smash play this week. Zeke is also questionable. Looks like he's going to go, but he's questionable, which just means Ramondre will get a lot more out of the backfield. Yeah. Ramondre is really the only guy you can play on this team right now, right?
No question. You might be able to, maybe, possibly Hunter Henry, depending on from a tight end perspective, if you like with the Bye-pocalypse going on, if you have like TJ Hawkinson or others, maybe you do have Isaiah Likely, things like that. Maybe look to plug him in. But John, to your point, that's it.
That's it, man. All right. NFL insider Josina Anderson reports the Panthers are expected to be interested in Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson for head coach. So that's interesting news too. We're getting some coaching rumors already here for 2024. So I like that, man. That'll be fun. Kadarius Toney practiced in full, so we might be able to see him this week as well. Keenan Allen did not practice with a quad injury. He usually gets Wednesdays off as a veteran rest day anyway. Monitor his status, though, because he was banged up last week. He's a little banged up this week, not practicing. So see if he gets out on the field on Friday. Monitor Keenan Allen. Rashid Shaheed, wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints, likely to be out this week. Now, Chris Olave does have a chance, and most of the time, seriously, like 98% of the time, somebody gets in the concussion protocol, they miss the very next week. They're saying Olave, he was in walkthroughs in practice. They're saying he does have a chance. Only a couple of guys have been able to do that within the week. Olave might be the next guy to do it. So keep an eye on him. I've got some shares of Chris Olave.
Same.
So I'm really hoping he gets out there, but it looks like he may be out there. However, Michael Thomas is out on IR. Rashid Shaheed is out. So A.T. Perry, rookie receiver. I don't know that you can expect a lot there, but there are a lot of receivers on bye this week. We'll talk about that. Could be a sneaky start for you just out of sheer volume, just that there's no other receivers out there. So take a look at that. Quentin Johnston, wide receiver for the Chargers, practiced in full. Kenny Pickett practiced in full as well. Treylon Burks returns to practice this week. Not really a guy that maybe a guy you could sit on to see if anything happens, but not really somebody you're going to throw out there for fantasy. Devon Achane. All right, I had to get the story on this because this has really pissed me off the past couple of weeks here. He was supposed to be back, then he wasn't, had a little setback. He was limited in practice. He was held out all week in practice last week and in week 12 as a precaution, apparently. So see if he practices Friday in full. I have a sense that he will, but it looks like we should get Devon Achane out on the field this week. The Browns. Let's get some news from the Brownies here, Frankie. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's just throw enough shit on the ceiling and see what sticks here. Yeah. The Browns have named Joe Flacco the backup to DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Yes.
Yes. Our savior. Yes.
Thank you.
DTR, not likely to play. He's in the concussion protocol. So it is very possible that Joe Flacco starts this Sunday versus the Rams. All right. Fantasy implications here, Frank, because we've got David Njoku. We've got Amari Cooper. People are wondering what the hell to do with these guys. I don't think anybody's really throwing Elijah Moore out there at this point. But does this help potentially Amari Cooper?
I think it does. John, as crazy as that sounds, I think it actually does. You look at what Joe Flacco did with the Jets last season. When he was in there, he was throwing the ball a lot. And so Corey Davis reaped the rewards of that. Elijah Moore, when he was on the Jets, reaped the rewards of that. And so, John, this could be very interesting. And I know you mentioned Elijah Moore might not be a guy, but he actually might be based on the synergy that they've already had previously. So for me, man, it's TBD. And I know that sounds crazy, but it really is. And it's because this Rams defensive front, anytime you're lining up against Aaron Donald, good luck, right? Even if you have top tier Bitonio and Posick and Wyatt Teller, right? It's still going to be an absolute bear of a matchup when you come up against this guy. So for me, I would assume if Joe Flacco is the guy, John, it's going to be quick hits. It's going to be quick hits. He knows there's going to be pressure coming off the outsides, number one, with the tackles that we have. But number two, pressure up the middle from Aaron Donald. So I want to be able to see how Stefanski utilizes him. So with that being said, Njoku, could be really interesting this week in a positive way. Coop could be very interesting in the way he runs quick slants. And then we could see Elijah Moore running those short to medium routes. So it's too early to tell. We need to continue to monitor if DTR is going to be in or not. But if Joe Flacco is in at Q, I don't necessarily see it being a regression from that of when DTR was at QB. So it could be interesting.
Yeah, I totally forgot about the Flacco Elijah Moore connection. You're right. I mean, those handful of games that Flacco played for the Jets,
They look good.
he threw the ball 40 times a game and was lighting the field up. It was pretty crazy. So I guess the moral of the story is here with the Browns then, start Njoku. I think he's an auto start at tight end anyway at this point. And keep an eye on, if you have to start Amari Cooper, I suppose you could with the buys and injuries and everything. I personally, if I had another option, I would wait. I would start someone else to see how things go. Also, Elijah Moore, don't drop him. Keep an eye on
Do not
this.
drop him.
Yeah, do not drop him. You may be able to play him in week 14 or potentially in the playoffs. Browns have very good matchups moving forward. And if Flacco, he's a statue back there, I know, but he can throw the ball. And he could make Elijah Moore kind of relevant these last couple weeks here. So keep an eye on that. I like it, man. All right, let's see here. Jerick McKinnon may miss week 13. He missed last week. He may miss week 13 with a groin. We've seen that Isaiah Pacheco, his targets went up when McKinnon's not in the game. So this week with McKinnon probably missing again, expect Isaiah Pacheco's targets, carries, everything to go up just a tad. So that's really good news for Pacheco. Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas, wide receiver for the New England Patriots, in concussion protocol, may miss week 13. That means Juju Smith-Schuster to be the number one with Bailey Zappi throwing to him. That is completely irrelevant to fantasy. Aaron Jones has not practiced. Really frustrating. Didn't play last week. Doesn't look like he's going to be playing again this week. A.J. Dillon took the bulk of the load, did pretty well with it. He'll get the load again this week, and I think he's a very strong start. Noah Brown practiced in full. Baker Mayfield will play this week, practiced in full. Tank Dell back to practice. That's great. So this is the first time, by the way, Frankie, fun fact, first time all season that CJ Stroud has had his entire receiver room on the field. Everyone's healthy. Yeah, pretty crazy. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Noah Brown, Robert Woods, they're all there. It's a good sign.
Could
it's
be
a good
good.
sign for CJ Stroud this week. I know, man. Although the bad news is Dalton Schultz missed practice on Thursday. So keep an eye on that. He's been awesome this year with CJ Stroud throwing him the ball. But it is looking like he could potentially be out. So keep an eye on him. See if he hits practice on Friday. All right, Frankie. Now we get into the good stuff. Let's get into some conversations here. We've got our smash or pass, our starts and sits, or our hit it, quit it, baby.
I want you to hit it. Hit it and quit it. I want you to.
All right, baby. Let's look at your top starts here. We've got for week 13, Bye-pocalypse. Now let's review who's on the bye here, guys. We've got Buffalo, Chicago, Vegas, Minnesota, New York, and Baltimore all on byes. God, it's so brutal, man.
So bad.
So bad. All right, Frankie, in your tier 1, 12 to 16 team leagues, who are we looking at as your top starts this week, brother?
John, I'm going to stay here with what you just said. Our boy CJ Stroud, right? He has his full team back outside of Dalton Schultz, which he could end up playing this week.
Yeah.
You get him back on top of having Devin Singletary running his nuts off the way he's been doing, and against a Denver defense that has, in the past this season, except for last week, when they've played a competent quarterback, they have had points put up against them. I am starting in my tier 1, 12 to 16 man league. It's got to be CJ Stroud, guys. Don't overthink this. This is a guy that's the number 6 quarterback on the year at this point in time right now. Last week alone against a very good Jags defense, right? He ended up throwing the ball for 304 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. He also had 6 carries for 47 yards, John, and a rushing touchdown. So even against good defenses, this guy is not out by any means. And it's strictly because they're putting the weight on his shoulders, and he's accepting that. They're not relying on the run game. They're not relying on that of a tandem backfield with Damien Pierce and Devin Singletary to get them to where they need to be. It is truly on CJ Stroud and the way he's dispersing this ball. So for me, man, playing against the Denver defense, Denver is going to that of the Texans, which makes a huge difference instead of going up into Mile High Stadium. I love it. Fire of CJ Stroud. Watch this boy work.
Absolutely. I mean, based on the news and what I was just talking about, I'm a big fan. But yeah, man, fire his ass up.
John, the next guy, again, we're talking 12 into 16 man leagues, is I'm firing up Courtland Sutton, John. Courtland Sutton has been very surprising, very quietly, the number 22 receiver in half PPR. He's almost top 20, very quietly. John, outside of the matchup with that of the Cleveland Browns, which, by the way, he still had 61 yards receiving and 3 receptions on 6 targets. Prior to that, he's had 14.6 points, 12.3 points, 9.9, 16, and 12. That's a very good stat line for a flex player. So when thinking about this, it's more than likely he's going to be your receiver too, unless you have Jordan Addison, unless you have maybe OBJ, God bless you if you do, or maybe you have Stephon Diggs or somebody like that. This is a very good plug and play individual for maybe a receiver two or a flex. So they're playing against the Houston defense that has given up passing yards. Russell Wilson looks really good this year. I think he's been getting not enough attention from the national media alone for the turnaround that he's done. So for me, man, it's absolutely Russell Wilson's number one guy playing against a good, an opportune defense to where he can score and at least get the targets needed. And I think based on what CJ Stroud is going to have to do, John, in terms of their throwing the ball, so will Denver. This is going to be a battle of the quarterbacks, in my opinion. That's why I like Courtland Sutton this week.
I agree. I mean, you look at this game and the schedule, in the preseason or early in the year, and you're like, God, what a shit game. These teams suck. These teams are coming around. These are two of the hottest teams in the AFC right now, man. And I do agree. I do think this game, I think there's going to be fantasy points to go around, man. I really do. Yeah, I think it's going to be a shootout. I mean, we never would have thought Houston versus Denver, the way Denver started the season, that this could be a shootout. But I really do think it's going to be. I think you're right. I think it's going to be quarterbacks on display, which is going to be wonderful for the receivers.
Fun.
Yeah. And the running games. I think the running games are going to do very well. I think Javonte Williams and I think Devin Singletary are both very, very good starts. Although I think they're going to work in Damien Pierce a little bit. I think they're out of respect giving Devin Singletary the start because of what he has done in Damien Pierce's absence. And I don't think the gap between those two have been very big. But Damien Pierce is healthy. He played a little bit last week. I think they're going to work him in a little more. So I like Javonte better than, who was I just talking about? Jesus.
Devin Singletary or Damien Pierce.
Devin Singletary, yeah. But I think all the teams, all the players on these teams, I think there's going to be fantasy points to go around for sure.
Definitely. John, this next guy here is somebody we've talked about at length. And it's almost like, all right, stop putting him as your start. Well, stop fucking performing so well. Okay. That's my caveat to that. Okay. We're talking Jaylen Warren. And yeah, he had a down week last week, but it's not, the points don't necessarily reflect the stats, which is kind of rare. And what I mean by that is Jaylen Warren is the number 25 running back on the year. He's averaging in half PPR double digits, 10.3 points a game right now. So yeah, he had a tough go against Cincinnati, but before that, John, he had 3 games in a row, double figures. And now they're getting Arizona at home. Arizona is traveling across the U.S., coming to Pittsburgh, which is difficult for West Coast teams, let alone going into a hostile environment like that in Pittsburgh. So for me, man, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are absolutely, with Kenny Pickett a little bit banged up, new OC. He's not going to want to throw everything at Arizona and really showcase maybe some things that he's been hiding. So I personally think it's going to be a lot of Najee and a lot of Jaylen Warren. So for me, I think you can absolutely start up Jaylen Warren again. I know you might be hesitant based on the last experience, but again, he did play against a decent opponent. So for me, man, I think that I really like Jaylen Warren this week.
Listen, man, I think this could be a fantasy redemption for all the Pittsburgh Steelers. I really do. I think this is a perfect matchup. You've got a team, exactly what you said, coming from the West Coast to Pittsburgh. They're playing at home. Obviously, the new OC, usually you get a little juice when a coach gets fired anyway. Everybody kind of rallies around. But, I mean, they had the most yardage they've had all season last week with the new OC. So I do think that they're on the upswing, believe it or not. I hate saying that about the Pittsburgh Steelers being a Browns fan. But this week in particular, I love all of the Pittsburgh assets.
Yeah.
If you've got the Kenny Pickett, George Pickens stack, now is the time to play that. I think Deontay Johnson is a wonderful play. And Pat Freiermuth. I mean, dude, tight end streamer of the week. If you don't have him, get him. But yes, play him. He's hugely important to Kenny Pickett in this offense. And we saw that last week upon his return.
John, the next guy, the last guy, again, we're talking tier 1, 12 to 16 man league. Who are we hitting? Who are we starting? I'm going to go with the number 8 running back on the year in half PPR. Number 8. Who do you think it is, John? You think it's, I don't know. Is it Austin Eckler? Is it right? No, it's Rachaad White. Rachaad White in half PPR is the number 8 running back, guys. He's walking in and having Carolina come to that of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. By the way, Tampa Bay is still not out of the playoffs. They still have things to fight for because the division is so bad. So they are literally in the thick of it. Rachaad White, John, something I did not notice, literally since their bye week in week 5, he's had every single week double-digit fantasy points in half PPR, but one. But one. Every single week since week 5 bye. And he's exploded, man. I mean, he's averaging 13 points a game. And when you're saying they're going to go against that of the Carolina Panthers and knowing that Baker Mayfield's banged up, right? They had to bring in Kyle Trask, knowing that they're still in this and showing what he has shown in terms of physicality over the last few weeks. John, this guy should probably even be started in an 8 to 10 man league, right? That's how good he's been playing. So for me, this is the start of the week. Rachaad White against that of the Carolina Panthers, who just fired their coach in complete turmoil, trying to figure it out. Their defense is banged up. Their offense looks like shit. You bring in Rachaad White, the game script could be absolutely beautiful, right? So I love Rachaad White this week.
It's fun going back and looking at one of our first episodes this year. We did a Would You Rather with Rachaad White and Kenneth Walker. And we both said Rachaad White based on the opportunity and how things went. It was very, very close.
Very close.
But everything we said really came true with his receiving work, with the safe floor. This is not a sexy player that everybody talks about at all. Yeah, I mean, you never hear his name. He's never on any of the thing because he's got such a safe floor, but he doesn't have much of a ceiling. That's the issue with him. You're not going to see the 30, 40-point games, the multiple score games, but he's been so good and consistent. You've got him as an RB2. That is just a foundation,
gold
anchor to your team. Yeah, you could throw in those guys that have those boner weeks and help you win a week, but to have a guy constantly in double digits, that's gold on your team, man. Yeah, I love it. This is a great matchup for him. So this is the time, baby. Everybody's healthy. Baker's going to play. Receivers are healthy. I really like a lot of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. I think Baker's a sneaky start if you have to stream a quarterback this week. Yeah. Mike Evans, almost guaranteed to score a touchdown this week.
Slam dunk. I would love to see those odds on anytime score.
Oh, it's got to be so high. Yeah.
It's got to be good. Yeah. It's got to be good.
Oh, yeah.
Shit, I might need to dabble a little bit. Might need to check that out.
Have to frank that one up, huh?
Might have to frank that one up a little bit. John, we're going to shift gears. We're going to go tier 2 here. We're going to go 8 to 10 man leagues, right? So this is where everybody's team is looking real nice. So we have to really sift through and really understand who's going to be the guys that we're starting. First and foremost, going back to the Steelers. In an 8 to 10 man league, I like Najee Harris this week. John, something that was interesting, and I hated Najee Harris all year, right? I think he's been really, really kind of bad all year until the bye week occurred. Once the bye week occurred in week 6, he's had 13 points, 8. He's had 14, 17, 4, and then 16. He's really done a decent job. And when they are playing the Arizona Cardinals, is what we just mentioned, I'm telling you, this is going to be a heavy dose of Najee. And with this new coordinator, literally his first week, John, he had 15 carries, 99 yards and a touchdown. He averaged 6.6 yards a carry. So I think, and that's against the Cincinnati defense, much better than Arizona. So I think that this could be absolute feast time for that of Najee and that of Jaylen Warren. So if I have either of these guys, I'm starting them up for sure.
Did you notice once they named Jaylen Warren the starter, Najee, he looks like he's got something to prove.
Totally.
I mean, you want to talk about angry runs. I mean, the guy the past 2 weeks since Jalen's been named the starter, he's had his best games of the year. He's just been running like a goddamn maniac. So maybe that was a smart move. Maybe Tomlin is kind of a genius and says, hey, I'm going to motivate this guy in any way I can. And that means I'm going to make him number 2. And guy comes out and plays like a number 1. So
and been dominating. They've been looking very good. Very good. So good call, John. So guys, what we're also looking at here too is I'm going to go with Zach Moss. I'm going with Zach Moss here in an 8 to 10 man league. It's scary. And I get it. It's really nerve wracking because you're looking at, okay, who do I start here? Do I literally start, one of my studs that are having an insane week or playing against, a really tough team? Or am I really plugging him in over somebody else, knowing that I might have James Cook, or maybe I had, Saquon Barkley or Gus Edwards, right? With those teams on bye? Absolutely. John, what we have seen from Zach Moss before Jonathan Taylor went out, he was the number 4 running back in fantasy football, and he was dominant. He wasn't just good. He was dominating teams. Look at that. Look at that. And so, John, for me, man, knowing that they're playing the Tennessee Titans, it's not necessarily a shoo-in, right? And I get that. But what I can tell you is the volume that Zach Moss is going to get, knowing that they're not going to put the entire weight of the world on that of Gardner Minshew's shoulders, and knowing that they are in the playoff hunt as we speak today, they need a balanced approach. Zach Moss could have a monster week. I like him this week.
Zach Moss has played the Tennessee Titans in week 5 at home. 35.5 fantasy points. He was the running back 2 on the week. He had 23 carries for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns. So
crazy.
Yeah. Start him up. Great call, man.
Still sad I dropped him. Set that to the side. Set that to the side. Okay. So, guys, number 3 here, Isaiah Pacheco. In an 8 to 10 man league, we're firing up Pacheco. Start his ass. You know why? Because he's been running like a madman. Jerick McKinnon is going to be potentially out. He's getting an uptick in receptions and targets. And in addition, the team needs the running game to be effective. This is not the same old Chiefs that we've seen for the last few years. They are absolutely depleted from a receiver perspective. Thank God they drafted Rashee Rice, because I think they would be in a whole world of shit outside of that of Travis Kelce. So for me, man, knowing that they're going against a Green Bay team, yes, it's going to be cold as shit. I believe this is even the Sunday night game, John, if I remember correctly, or it's a primetime game. So what that means is it's going to be frigid cold. It is going to be freezing. And so usually when that happens, there is a heavy dose of running back play. So I personally love Isaiah Pacheco against a defense that honestly has given up. We look at what they just did against that of Detroit. Gibbs looked good. David Montgomery looked good. It wasn't their reason why they lost, I can tell you that much. So I think Isaiah Pacheco could be a great start.
It is Sunday night, and Isaiah Pacheco's been so solid. He's the running back 12 right now. He's a running back 1 on the season. He's just been very, very solid, very consistent. Double digits all but 4 weeks so far this year. I mean, that's fantastic, man. I mean, we weren't really expecting that out of this Chiefs offense, but you're right. Because of the way their defense has been playing, the way that they're playing in general, they don't have that just number 1 target other than Travis Kelce. They need Pacheco. You're 100% right, man. And he's doing well with it. Absolutely. Love it.
John, the last guy here for the tier 2 is actually going to be Travis Etienne. And now Travis Etienne, if he plays, there's an asterisk next to this. If he plays, if he doesn't play in an 8 to 10 man league, I'm not starting Durnest or I'm not starting Tanks Bigsby, because you probably have other running backs that might be better, or even a flex player that's better. But if Travis Etienne is playing, I am firing him up in an 8 to 10 man league. The reason being, John, is because we just saw what happened to Cincinnati against that of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh strictly relied on their running attack. And so you saw Najee with 15 points. Yeah, Jaylen Warren didn't have as good of a fantasy game as what it showed from an actual NFL stat line. But when you combine them, it was a 20-point game. So for me, man, knowing the ability that Travis Etienne has, knowing the chemistry he has with Trevor Lawrence, right? It truly could be a nice check down play, couple receptions, as well as just getting a bulk of a load. So for me, man, if Travis Etienne plays, he's a must fire up, especially since what is even crazier to say out loud, he's the number 3 running back on the year so far for half PPR. Number 3. Let's just bask in that for a second. And Rashad White at 8. Nobody guessed that coming into the year.
And Isaiah Pacheco at 12.
That's crazy, man.
There's 3 of your RB1s for the year.
Think about it. That's nuts.
Yeah. Wouldn't have guessed that. Yeah.
So, John, we're going to shift gears and we're going to see who the hell are we sitting this week.
Who are you sitting down?
My sit of the week is easy. It's Damien Pierce. Damien Pierce versus that of the Denver Broncos. I don't know if they're losing faith in him, or I don't know if it's just the way Devin Singletary has come out and pretty much taken that job. So for me, a lot of people that I know have been asking me, what do I do with Damien Pierce? You can't trade him. Trade deadline's passed. Certainly can't drop him. So you hold him. You hold him in case an injury happens. You hold him in case you absolutely see that it becomes more of a 50-50, 60-40 type of split. Like, John, like this to me against the Denver defense, you know, from a rushing perspective, they looked pretty darn good against that of the Browns. But the problem is the Browns actually had a really poor game plan for the worst rushing defense in the league against that of Denver. So yeah, it's a risk play, but I'm going more in the factor of I don't think they're going to utilize him as much. So that's why I'm sitting Damien Pierce this week.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's no way you can throw him out there at this point. You need to see him getting at least 50% of the snaps before you even consider putting him in a flex.
John, the next guy that I'm sitting is going to be interesting. It's Drake London. And Drake London has actually been decent, you know, this year. It hasn't been great, but he's been okay, serviceable, in some aspects. And so for me, man, when they're going up and playing against that of the New York Jets, they are just dominating. That defense is dominating opposing receivers and opposing quarterbacks. Knowing the quarterback situation in Atlanta is, Quinnen Williams and that defense should be feasting this week. The defense might score more points than their offense might, as crazy as that sounds. So, John, I don't want to roll out Drake London, who's going to be matched up against Reed or Sauce Gardner. I think it's a really bad matchup, knowing that they're probably going to stack the box on Bijan. You got to fire a Bijan, absolutely, no question about it. It's a tough start anyways, but Drake London, man, I'm sitting him this week.
They're going to struggle in the passing game, no question about it. I think the leading receiver will be Bijan in this game. I think that's the best shot they've got, is to get him out of the backfield, get him in space, do some screens. I think, unfortunately, Drake London's going to be doing a lot of cardio and being a lot, taking the safety away from other people, unfortunately. Could be a Kyle Pitts game, though. Interesting.
Could be. Yeah. But guess who the third guy I'm sitting is, John?
Who's that?
Kyle Pitts. We're going to sit his ass down. You won't sit down, Kyle Pitts. Okay? Kyle Pitts against the New York Jets. John, Kyle Pitts, you want to know what he's done? It could be an interesting start, right? I mean, yeah, you're looking at him. He's an athletic build. You know, he's like absolutely nuts. But here's what he's done over the last few weeks. Let's just go back to week 8. 5 points, 7 points, 4 points, bye week, 3 points. And now you're playing against that. And by the way, you want to know who he played? Here, let's go one more week before that. Tampa Bay, 6 points. Tennessee, 5 points. Vikings, 7 points. Arizona Cardinals, 4 points. And then the New Orleans Saints, 3 points. This defense in the Jets is 10x any of those defenses. And it's not close. So for me, man, I actually think Jonnu Smith might be a better option this week, being the number 2 tight end comparatively to that of Pitts, because I could see the Jets defense keying a little bit more on Pitts, shutting him and Drake London down. So I'm not a fan of Pitts this week. Look elsewhere, stream another tight end.
He's the ultimate decoy, and it's so frustrating.
He is.
I mean, they came out, talked about how important he is to the offense, and it's because he draws the attention in the middle of the field. That's why you see when they're both out there, Jonnu Smith getting touchdowns, because everybody sees this super freak athlete, and they end up double teaming him. They end up shutting Drake London down, and that leaves Bijan out of the backfield, or it leaves Jonnu Smith in the end zone by himself. So it's really interesting. It's frustrating as hell in fantasy. But yeah, man, God, get that team a goddamn quarterback so we can see Drake London fulfill his destiny and his pedigree.
Exactly.
And you could see Kyle Pitts actually be a goddamn freak of nature like he should be. It's frustrating. I know, man.
It's frustrating. Who knows? Maybe Justin Fields could be a Falcon next year. Maybe there's something
interesting.
Could something like that could happen. Kirk Cousins, maybe he doesn't go back to the Vikings. Maybe he's an unrestricted free agent. To your point, Falcons are desperately needing a quarterback. Desperately. Taylor Heineke wasn't the answer, and certainly not dude from Cincinnati. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Desmond Ridder.
Thank you, Desmond Ridder. Yes, has not been the answer. John, the last sit for us. This one hits home. It's going to be Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, unfortunately, just hasn't been right from a health perspective. Something's been up the last few weeks. Didn't practice on Wednesday. Right, going against that of the Rams defense. They're traveling across the country, right? Jerome Ford is looking a little bit more healthy. Pierre Strong might be seeing a little bit more uptick in play. So, John, I just don't like this matchup. In addition to if Flacco does start or DTR, again, I see them stacking the box a bit. So this is a week to where I'm not really excited about Hunt. Over the last 2 weeks, man, he had 5.2 points against that of the Steelers and 2 points against that of Denver, who, again, has the worst rush defense in the NFL. So again, temper expectations on Hunt, look elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, he's had in the past 5 weeks, he's had 4 targets. That's it. I mean, that's where Kareem Hunt, did a lot of his damage, where the passes out of the backfield. He's only caught 3 passes in the past 5 weeks. Last week, 0 targets, 0 catches, 26% snap count for Kareem Hunt. You can't throw a guy out there that's playing a quarter of the game. I mean, you just can't. And only 7 carries for 22 yards. It's Jerome Ford's backfield. The backfield is shifted here. They'll put in Pierre Strong. They'll put in Kareem Hunt for some third downs and things like third and longs. But it's Jerome Ford's backfield. And I just don't see a world unless you just need a body on your team because of the bye weeks. You can't start Kareem Hunt. No,
Definitely cannot.
All right, man. Anybody else you want to sit this week?
I think those are pretty good. I think those are pretty solid for this week, man.
I think it's really good. All right, we got a minute or two here. We got a couple of streams of the week. We talked about for quarterback. You're desperate. You've got some bye weeks happening here. I think Kenny Pickett is a great stream this week. We talked about it. He's at home against Arizona. We talked about the Steelers, with the new offensive coordinator. He's got his weapons all healthy. We saw some juice out of him. I think there's a little bit of promise there. And this is the right defense to feel much, much better about Kenny Pickett. So I think he'd be a decent stream for you this week. When it comes to tight ends, because I know a lot of people are streaming tight ends, Trey McBride, if he plays, he is banged up, but monitor that for Friday. I think he'd be a very strong start. And I think Evan Ingram is a wonderful tight end versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati is the second worst against tight ends. So that's really good information to have. Fire up Evan Ingram if you've got him, or pick him up off of waivers. Couple of defenses this week. Streaming defenses. I mean, all right, we're gonna pick on a couple shit quarterbacks. I mean, that's what I do when I'm looking at streaming my defenses. I'm looking at, there's so many bad quarterbacks playing right now. I'm targeting those guys. There are a couple of those that we can look at that you normally wouldn't start the defense, but Jacksonville at home versus Cincinnati on Monday night. Yeah, man. Fire that defense up. I think the Chargers is a really sneaky start as well at defense. They're playing at New England. Bailey Zappi starting. The number 1 receivers, Juju Smith-Schuster, who probably hasn't caught a pass in about 6 months. It's going to be bad. Not a great defense, but we have seen them dominate a team before in prime times, so the Chargers could get it done. Another one that I think is really sneaky is Miami. Miami at the Washington Commanders. Washington's going to have to throw the ball to keep up with Miami in this game. Their defense is depleted. Miami's probably going to score at will. The good news of that is that Sam Howell's going to be throwing the ball a lot, which he'll do well. He'll throw the ball a lot. He's going to complete a lot of passes, but he's also going to complete some passes to the Miami defenders as well.
Totally.
The guy's got the most interceptions, per passes thrown in the NFL right now. Yes, he could be very generous to that Miami Dolphins defense.
And
All right,
sacks, John. Sacks
And
too.
sacks.
He's the most sacked
Absolutely.
quarterback. And, if you guys are playing in a league that has sacks that give you a point or two, could be nice. Could be a nice little cherry on top.
Yeah. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our week 13 starts and sits. Good luck to you this week. My God, a lot of teams on bye, a lot of tough matchups. We got some great games out there. The Eagles, 49ers. Ooh, can't wait for that game, man. That's going to be awesome. Yeah. All right, baby. Anything else? Anything you got, bud?
Guys, keep the questions coming. If you right before the games hit, send us over a couple comments on the YouTube videos. We'll be happy to jump in and answer as they come in. And then, as always, continue to pay attention to the injuries and the waivers. As things change throughout the week, if you start seeing a couple of your players not available or they're out, immediately be active. Now is not the time to not be active and just say, hey, I'm going to roll with the bench. Somebody might get hurt this week. Pick them up, put them in, and win your week.
That's right. Next week's get tuned in to us, guys. Next Wednesday episode dropping. We're going to do a little review of week 13. We're going to talk about our Island of Misfit Toys. What the hell do we do with some of these guys, about how they performed in week 13. We're also going to start really talking playoffs. This is the time, guys. Next week for most leagues is the last week of the regular season for fantasy football. I can't even believe that's possible right now.
Crazy.
Isn't that nuts? But we're going to be talking a lot about the playoffs. This is the time of year where you need to start picking up defenses, planning your quarterbacks, any positions you're streaming. Look at that first week at least of the playoffs and start getting your lineups and team planned out for what you're going to do that week. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your Sunday football, and we'll see you guys all next week. May the fantasy gods smile upon you. Bye.